I'm James Lynch, and this is an early edition of the Stock Report for UFC Vegas 106, where I take a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. And in this case, the thumbnail gives it away, but I mean, how could this guy not be the biggest stock riser on the card? Michael Morales winning in the main event, getting the first round finish over Gilbert Burns. Nice right hand, and then just laid on some bombs and looked like a minus 800 favorite here tonight. Morales looked great. This is a big win. Gilbert Burns, very tough to finish. You even know Jack Della Maddalena, it took him a couple rounds to finish Gilbert Burns. Prior to that, I think you have to go back to the Usman fight that he's been finished. Burns is a pretty durable guy, and he went in there and took care of business. And this is the exact type of win that Michael Morales needed. He is now in that contender spot with a win like this over a former title challenger here in Gilbert Burns. So, don't be surprised if you see him fight like a Bilal Muhammad or fight someone like a, Ian Gary. Probably not Gary. Gary, I think, is a little bit too far near the top, but like a Leon Edwards. Like, I think those are the type of fights you're going to see next year for Michael Morales with getting this win in the first round. Again, he was supposed to win. He's the minus 800 favorite. But if you're a minus 800 favorite, you better go out there and win in the first round, and that's what he did here tonight. So Michael Morales, easily the biggest stock riser, has yet to lose in his career. And, the resume, it still needs a bit of work, I think, in terms of some of the wins. Neil Magny, Gilbert Burns, 2 finishes there. Again, your Trevin Giles and Adam Fugits and these guys, maybe not the greatest resume, but these last 2 wins especially, this is the type of stuff that's going to get you into that contenders conversation. So huge win there for Michael Morales, easily the biggest stock riser on this card. Okay, second biggest stock riser on this card. How about Costa getting it done over Julian Orosa? I know this is a close fight. I saw scorecards. I saw some scorecards on my timeline with some people having it for Julian Orosa, but I thought this was the right call. I did have Costa winning 2-1. It's mainly just with the fact that, yes, he was favored to win, but it's the win streak he's been on this year. 28 years old, really coming into his own. Since getting knocked out by Steve Garcia, has now won 4 straight, and this is a really big win for him. He gets the win over Christian Rodriguez. I believe he was an underdog there. Might be not. Let me just see here. Yeah, he was the underdog there. Wasn't the underdog tonight, but taking out a veteran here in Julian Orosa. He could very well get a ranked opponent at this point. 4 straight wins, always looks good on the resume. And I thought he looked good, very durable, got some good takedowns. I thought Costa had a really complete game here tonight, and he's been fairly active this year as well. That's another thing you really like to see here. That's 3 fights now in 2025. We're not even at the halfway point, so he gets another fight or 2 in here. Don't be surprised if he's fighting a ranked opponent. Huge win there for Costa, taking out the veteran Julian Orosa. And this was definitely one of the highlights of the card. Credit to Jared Gordon. I know he's been kind of screwed over the last couple of fights. You look at the Paddy Pimblett decision and, the fight with Nasrat Haqparast, but Jared Gordon gets it done at 36, finishing Thiago Moises in the very first round. That's the type of win you like seeing. So he's now got, wins in the first round in his 2 of his last 3 fights. You like to see that. Again, I'm not expecting Jared Gordon to go on any sort of crazy run in the weight class, but taking out a guy in Moises who's younger, who I think was a little bit more well-rounded, very impressive there for Jared Gordon. So, this is going to get him possibly a ranked opponent. We'll see, although he was coming off a loss, so probably not actually. They'll probably give him someone just outside the rankings or someone very interesting, but even like a Benoit Saint-Denis, I wouldn't be totally opposed to that. I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis, yes, he got the win last weekend over Kyle Prepelec, but, I think there's still some questions there. So I think whatever you do with Jared Gordon, it's not going to be a boring fight. Big win there for Jared Gordon. His stock goes up big time. Okay, 2 honorable mentions here I'm going to add, and there's a couple different ways you could go. And again, in the comments, let me know which way you're leaning as far as your 3 biggest stock risers and stock droppers. Got to give a quick shout out to Gabe Green. So looked like he was in some trouble in this fight. I did think Camilo won the first round, but what a comeback that was. That veteran experience, I think, really paid dividends here. Didn't panic when he was in that triangle choke. Ends up reversing and getting the rear naked choke of his own here. Plus 190 underdog, he comes through here. Gifted Gabe Green looking really good in the lightweight division. Excited to see what's for him next. And remember, long layoff coming into this fight too. And then another honorable mention. Let's talk about Park on the prelims here. First round submission victory. He's still undefeated at 10-0. 29 years old in the flyweight division, which, they're always looking for new contenders. Had a long layoff coming into this fight. Very impressed by Park, someone I'll be keeping an eye on going forward. So I think Park certainly has to get an honorable mention. There's a lot of other wins on here, but I'll let you guys decide if there's anyone missed here as far as the stock risers. Okay, stock droppers. This one is, maybe I'm being a little hard here, but I think Thiago Moises is the biggest stock dropper here. Now, I know people will say Burns wasn't supposed to win. At least with Thiago Moises, the odds were fairly close here, right? He was actually, I think he ended up closing as just a slight dog, but it's just the fact this is another setback for Moises, who really has not been able to find his footing in the lightweight division. Another stoppage loss too, right? Like he got absolutely, decimated by Benoit Saint-Denis a couple fights back. Same thing with Joel Alvarez. This was a guy that went 4 rounds with Islam just a couple years ago and hasn't really been able to get back to that, spot where he's supposed to be. Has a win over Costa, who I just talked about, but obviously Costa's dropped. But like Giagos, Mitch Ramirez, Trey Ogden, these are not ranked fighters. This to me was a winnable fight for Thiago Moises, and he wasn't able to come through. And even worse, he gets finished in the first round here. So, again, tough look here for Moises. I don't really know where he goes from here, but he's now got 3 losses by knockout in his young career at 30 years old. So you hope he can turn it around. But this is a big setback for Moises, who was looking to move up in the lightweight division, especially after the last win over Trey Ogden. Okay, second biggest stock dropper, and this could be your first biggest stock dropper. I can certainly understand it here. Optically kind of makes sense because Burns fought for a title one time, but Gilbert Burns getting finished in the first round here, 38 years old. Where do you go from here now? That's 4 straight losses. And, you could make the argument that, Bilal, former champ, JDM, the current champ, Brady possibly could be a champ. Michael Morales, again, I think the big thing here is that this fight wasn't really competitive. I don't know how you guys felt, but I thought Burns looked really slow tonight. Didn't really seem like the old Burns, and that's going to happen. Even Bisping referenced it on the broadcast that when fighters, you compete long enough, you're gonna start to have some miles on you, and I think that showed tonight. And that's not to take away anything away from Michael Morales, so I thought put on a great performance. But we'll see. I saw some people saying Burns should retire and all these different things, but I think he'll end up getting another fight. But they're going to use him for someone else to try and build him up here. If you just look at the rankings, like I'm just looking right now at some possibilities for him to fight next. You could maybe do like a Stephen Thompson fight or something. I don't really know at this point. They're going to have to figure it out as far as the next opponent for Gilbert Burns. But I think that Burns, a lot of room for improvement here after that loss, and he's going to have to kind of bounce back a little bit. So Gilbert Burns, definitely a big stock dropper on this card. And the other stock dropper here, he was an underdog, but you got to go with Sadiq Yousef. I thought Myron Santos won every single round of this fight. He's 31, but that's another key loss here. 3 losses in a row. And those wins that he has, Caceres, yeah, I'll give him that. But like Don Shainis isn't in the UFC anymore. Like it's just really tough to figure out where Sadiq fits in the featherweight division at this point. Actually, he's lightweight now, so it's going to be even tougher. I think that's an even deeper division here. So yeah, big setback there for Sadiq Yousef. He might even get released after this. So, this was a guy that at one point was ranked in the featherweight division. We'll see where he goes from here, but Sadiq Yousef, tough loss there to Myron Santos. A couple honorable mentions as far as stock droppers. Matias Camilo was favored in this fight. Looked good, actually, but, and ended up getting finished here in his UFC debut. He's 24. He'll be back, obviously, but I think that was, definitely a guy that there was a little bit more hype on and thought maybe he'd get it done. And then the other stock dropper we got to talk about is Julian Orosa. And again, underdog in this spot, but Orosa had a nice win streak coming into this, right? He had 3 straight wins, all finishes, looked really good, and wasn't able to get it done tonight. Again, he barely lost this fight, in my opinion. I thought this was a close one, but it's just the optics of now he's lost, he's 35 years old, and he's got a loss here after winning 3 straight. His stock has definitely gone down after this card. So again, just to quickly recap here, stock risers, Michael Morales, Costa, and Jared Gordon. Thiago Moises, Gilbert Burns, and Sadiq Yousef are your stock droppers. Let me know in the comments what your 3 biggest stock risers are and what your 3 biggest stock droppers are. Let me know in the comments. Let's have a fun discussion about this. Pretty good card, actually, from the Apex in terms of, it being on a little bit earlier, which I don't mind at all. And, a lot of action, a lot of finishes there. So let me know in the comments what you think. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. This is the Stock Report. I do this after every single UFC event. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon.